How's it going, everyone? This is Will, and today I have a absolutely ridiculous Ableton tutorial for you guys, because I used Ableton and a Novation Launchpad to create an MPC style note repeat effect that works something like this. With LED feedback, which is kind of awesome. And today I want to show you guys how to build it. So even if you guys aren't planning on making something like this or don't have a Launchpad, the note repeat function is going to work the same. And if you haven't been using the MIDI effects and MIDI effect racks in Ableton Live, you should be checking them out because you're missing out on a lot of functionality, and we're going to cover a lot of what they can do. So stick around and you might learn something anyways. So before I actually show you how to build this device, I want to show you what it is that I'm doing. So what I've done is I've split the grid up into 4 different drum zones, and they're all playing the exact same notes, the exact same samples, and the exact same drum rack. They're just playing them at different speeds. So this bottom one is completely freeform with no quantization. My top one is set to 8ths, 16ths, 30 seconds, and the LED feedback shows that they're all playing the same pad. And the other thing I've done is in my user 2 page, I've created some velocity functionality because the Launchpad itself, the pads don't detect velocity, and I wanted that for things like hi-hat programming. So what I've done is I've split up the note ranges into 16 different 4-button ranges. The far left being light velocity, and then the far right being my maximum, and everything in between. So that's what the device does, and now I'm going to show you guys how to build it. So I'm going to turn mine off, and we'll get started. Go ahead and create 3 MIDI tracks. I'm going to call these note because that's where we're going to build the device, and the MIDI notes are going to actually be coming from. This one is going to be LED for our light feedback. This is going to be record because the reason we need 3 is that MIDI tracks can't record themselves, and we want all this awesome note repeat functionality to be able to be stored in clips at the end of this chain. So that's why we need a 3rd one. To make sure that MIDI is coming into my note channel from the Launchpad itself, and then getting sent to the recording channel. So I'm going to select MIDI in from note here. Turn the monitors onto both of these, and then, very important, make sure that you guys actually have a drum kit set up on the record mode. And we're doing it here because these 2 are basically just going to be LED, or not LED, but MIDI data, and this is where the audio is actually going to be taking place. So now, if I play that should work. Let's turn that down and not deafen anyone. Cool. You may have noticed that my LED feedback doesn't work yet, and that's what we're going to take on first. So to get LED feedback on a Launchpad is really simple. We basically just have to send the MIDI back to it. So MIDI from, I'm going to choose the record track because we also want MIDI feedback from the clips and not just the Launchpad device itself. And we're going to put monitor to in. Now we just need to figure out which channel to send the MIDI data to. To do that, go see where it's coming from. So go to your note channel, click the MIDI channel selector here, and we can see that's coming in on channel 5. So MIDI output 2, Launchpad, channel 5, let there be light. Cool, our MIDI works now. Our LED works now. So let's go ahead and actually build the note repeater device that I created. Go over to your note channel, go to MIDI effect racks and MIDI effects, and throw in a MIDI effect rack. Open up your chain list and go ahead and create a new chain. If you guys haven't messed around with the MIDI effect racks, they can basically split, select, or gate MIDI information in 3 different ways. One is by key that's coming into the rack, velocity that's coming into the rack, or you can manually select the chains, and every single chain is going to have its own little range that you can select from, so you could switch between them that way if you wanted. Right now, let's just have one chain. So go ahead and drop a MIDI velocity effect at the end here. And I'm going to talk about this in a second, but for right now, just go ahead and turn that off. And then I want you to take another MIDI effect rack and drop it after the velocity effect. But make sure it's still inside of the first effect rack, so they're actually nested inside of each other. Again, go ahead and create a chain, and go ahead and open up your key functionality. So what we're going to do with this MIDI rack is we're going to take all the MIDI information that's coming in from the different 4 pads on the grid and send them to their respective pads on the first drum zone. That way they're all triggering the same samples. So this lower left-hand pad here where I'm going to start is C1. So I'm going to take this range selector here and isolate just C1 for right now. Then I'm going to take 2 more effects, a MIDI pitch adjuster and a arpeggiator. Both of these are extremely useful when you're building and programming these types of MIDI devices. So go ahead, turn the gate down, down to 1%, and go ahead and turn the arpeggiator off. And you can turn pitch off too, that's fine. But then what we're going to do, now that we have these in place, they're basically just so we don't have to drag them in by hand and we can duplicate this chain. Go ahead and duplicate this chain 3 more times, so we have a total of 4. Now what we're going to do is we're going to find out where these buttons are. So on your controller, pick the appropriate button. I'm just using my arrow keys to move these. And then you're going to place their selection on those notes. Make sure you are pushing the right buttons, or you will go crazy later when you have 16 of these racks going on. So I'm just going to double check that. Yes. Cool. Ooh. There we go. Cool. Now those are selecting the data just from those 4 notes. But now we want to bounce them down. So I'm going to turn on my pitch and arpeggiator here. And to bounce these down, we're going to use this pitch function, and we're going to bring them down by 16 because I have 16 drum pads. So keep in mind, it's not an octave. It's not going to be C1, C2, etc. like that. It's going to be down by 16. So this first one is going to be minus 16. Next one is going to be minus 32. And our final one is going to be minus 48. So when I do that, these pads are now going to play that one kick all in the corner. Awesome. But now this is where you guys get to choose what speeds you want your different pads to play. And you could set up a different one for any pad that you wanted to at whatever speed for crazy hi-hat variations or whatever. But just for simplicity, I'm just going to do the setup that I had before and showed you guys. So first one, arpeggiator on is set to 8ths. Second one, arpeggiator is on and set to 16ths. And our last pad here is going to be on, and we're going to set it to 30 seconds. Now that I have all that selected, cool. So let's go all the way back down here to our velocity effect. So this is where I showed you that functionality that I have on my user 2 page. And what we're going to do is select the fixed function, and now this out high is going to hardwire the velocity to that setting. No matter what comes in, it's always going to be at this selection here. So I'm going to go into my user 2. Make sure you switch over to user 2 if you're using a Launchpad and copying me. Otherwise, it's going to mess up your user 1 settings. Make sure you're in user 2. Highlight that out high functionality. Go into your MIDI mapping mode, and we're going to create a range. So in a Launchpad in user 2, the way that the data goes, it goes all the way across and goes up. So what I did is I split it, and I go up like this, but it's however you guys want to do it. I'm just letting you know that that's actually how the data goes. So we're going to do this, and we're going to create a range. To create a note range for a MIDI controller in Ableton, you want to press and hold down the first note in that range, and then while that's still held down, press the second note, and in between those, it's all going to control that. Before I get out of MIDI mode, I'm going to take this minimum setting, and I'm going to turn it up a little bit, because right now my first button is going to give my kicks a velocity of 0, and drums with a velocity of 0 don't do a whole lot, and I don't want that. So I'm going to turn that up. So now, as I push these buttons, you can see this knob jump through that range. Cool. So now we have our effect set up for one of these pads. And now what you guys are going to do is you're going to create 15 more of them. So just duplicate them. It's not that hard. You just go over here, select your next pad, select all these, and just hit over until your notes are on their proper spaces. Everything else is going to go along straight with it. So now those three work. I'm going to let you guys do the rest. The only other thing that you do have to do is you have to go into each chain and you have to manually map your user to velocity settings. That is a pain in the ass, but you know, it's not going to kill you, and you don't even have to do it if you don't want to. It's still going to work, or the basis of the machine is. So what we have now, though, is we have all this working. The LED feedback works for these pads, even if I'm hitting their counterparts, but what's not happening is them all lighting up. And I want them all to light up because, you know, this is a big grid. You can get lost in it when you're playing real fast, and I want them all to light up. So let's go to our LED track again. I'm going to create a MIDI effect rack. And inside this MIDI effect rack, we're going to create another one. So, and that's also going to automatically create a chain, by the way. And what we're going to do again is we're going to go to velocity. And before I get started on the rest of this, I'm going to show you why we have a velocity selector inside of a MIDI LED control. And the reason is because incoming velocity is how the Launchpad decides what color the button is going to light up as. And having all your buttons light up the same color is also kind of confusing, so I don't want that. So I'm going to actually turn this off, and I'm going to show you back when I have all my buttons lighting up. It's just easier to kind of demonstrate then. So your next rack, go ahead and open up your chain list and create a chain. So you have it open. Again, we're going to isolate this first pad. So again, C1. And we're basically going to be doing the opposite of what we did in the other rack, which was we took the notes from 4 different pads and we bounced them down to C1. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bounce them back up so their respective pads light up. And remember, this is just MIDI data going back into the Launchpad. It's not going to create any sounds, anything like that. Cool. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create... Actually, let's just go ahead, throw a pitch adjuster in here, and then duplicate it. Cool. And you can turn it off on this first one if you want. Now let's duplicate it and create 3 more. Again, a total of 4. So we're going to keep the MIDI data here at C1. And actually we're going to keep it there for all of them. And what we're just going to do is use this pitch adjuster to then bounce them. And like I said, we're doing the opposite. So this one's going to go up 16. Second one is going to go up by 32. And the next one, is going to go up by 48. So now when I push down my kick, if you heard, make sure everything is selected. Oh, and turning it on helps too. Cool, now all my LEDs light up. So, back to the velocity. The reason, like I said, I have that is to change the color. So, to show you an example of that, I'm going to duplicate this. Put both these on. Make sure you have it turned on before you delete these because, again, you're going to make these chains over here. You need a total of 16 of them, one for each pad. So, yeah. Now if I hold these down, and again, move these over just to their correct things for each pad. Cool. Now the LEDs for these 2 work. And I change the velocity, you can see them changing color. So that's why I have that velocity function in there. So now we have the note repeater built. We have LED feedback on all of our pads. And just to kind of show you what this looks like when you're actually playing it back, hit record over here. And play. Oh, yeah, turn that to auto so it actually plays the clip. Yeah, so that's it. Let me know if you guys have any questions, comments. I'm always trying to think of new cool things I can build without using Max for Live. So yeah, hit me up and I'll see if I can come up with any solutions for you guys. That's my tutorial. Thanks for sticking around. Hope you learned something. Until next time.